The night was unusually quiet in the human colony on the edge of the galaxy's spiral arm. The air carried a faint chill, and the stars above seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly intensity. It was during this stillness that the guard, a man in his mid-30s with weathered features and piercing eyes, found himself standing at the threshold of the royal suite. His orders had been simple: ensure the safety of their most esteemed guest, Princess Lyria of the Androlith Empire. She was not just any dignitary. She was royalty from a civilization so advanced that humanity's greatest achievements paled in comparison. Princess Lyria had arrived earlier that day, her arrival heralded by a fleet of sleek, silver ships that glided through the atmosphere like liquid mercury. Her presence alone commanded awe. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, her skin shimmered with iridescent hues that shifted depending on the light, sometimes pearl white, sometimes deep ocean blue. Her hair cascaded down her back in waves of silken threads that caught the glow of nearby lanterns, appearing almost alive as it rippled without wind. But it wasn't just her physical beauty that captivated those around her, it was the way she moved, spoke, and even gazed upon others with eyes that seemed to hold galaxies within them. Her visit was shrouded in mystery. Officially, she was here for diplomatic purposes, seeking to strengthen ties between her empire and Earth's burgeoning interstellar coalition. Unofficially, rumors swirled about ulterior motives, perhaps something more personal or urgent driving her journey across the stars. Whatever the truth, her very existence challenged everything humans thought they knew about life beyond their own world. For now, the guard stood outside her door, rifle slung over his shoulder but resting uneasily against his chest. He'd been chosen for this assignment because of his reputation for vigilance and discretion. Yet nothing could have prepared him for what came next. As he adjusted his stance, the heavy wooden door creaked open slightly, revealing Lyria herself. She wore flowing robes of translucent fabric, adorned with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly with bioluminescent energy. Her expression was calm yet curious, as though she were observing some rare creature in its natural habitat. "Guard," she said softly, her voice carrying a melodic quality that resonated deep within him. "May I speak with you?" He hesitated, unsure if protocol allowed such proximity, let alone conversation. Still, there was something disarming about her demeanor, an aura of serene authority that made resistance feel futile. Nodding once, he stepped closer, maintaining a respectful distance. "I understand your duty is to protect me," she continued, tilting her head ever so slightly as though studying him. "But I find myself uneasy tonight. This place, while hospitable, feels unfamiliar. Lonely." Her words struck him harder than expected. Here was someone who commanded entire fleets, whose name inspired reverence across countless worlds, and yet, she admitted to feeling vulnerable? It defied logic, yet somehow felt profoundly honest. Before he could respond, she took another step forward, closing the gap between them. "I wonder," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that sent an inexplicable shiver down his spine. "Might I ask for a favor? A small indulgence, born of curiosity rather than necessity." He swallowed hard, gripping his rifle tighter as if grounding himself against the surreal moment unfolding before him. "Your Highness," he began cautiously, "my role is to ensure your safety. If there's anything specific—" She cut him off gently, raising one elegant hand. "You misunderstand. My request is simple. May I spend a night by your side, human?" Her gaze locked onto his, unwavering and intense. Not out of fear or need, but simply to share space. To understand. Time seemed to freeze. The implications of her request weighed heavily on him. She wasn't asking for protection or comfort in the conventional sense. This was something far stranger, far more intimate. Sharing a bed with an alien princess wasn't part of any training manual or contingency plan. And yet, the sincerity in her voice left no room for doubt. His mind raced. What did she mean by, to understand? Was this some cultural ritual he hadn't been briefed on? Or was it something deeper, something instinctual that transcended language and species? Whatever the reason, he couldn't deny the pull of her presence, the magnetic allure of her being. I don't know if that's appropriate," he stammered finally, his voice betraying his inner turmoil. Lyria tilted her head again, her expression softening into something akin to amusement. "Appropriate is a human construct, she replied lightly. And I am not entirely human. With those words, the weight of her otherness pressed down upon him once more. She wasn't merely different, she was alien in every sense of the word. Yet, paradoxically, she also exuded a warmth, a vulnerability that bridged the chasm between their species. I won't force you, she added after a pause, her tone gentle but firm. But consider this, we are two beings adrift in the vastness of the universe. Is it so wrong to seek connection, however fleeting? Her question lingered in the air, unanswered. For all his training, his discipline, he realized he didn't have an answer. Not yet, anyway. All he knew was that standing there, beneath the watchful gaze of the stars, he felt smaller than ever before. Smaller, yet strangely significant. As the guard grappled with the enormity of Lyria's request, the silence between them stretched, thick with unspoken questions and possibilities. Finally, he nodded slowly, setting aside his weapon with deliberate care. If it will ease your mind, Your Highness, he murmured, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling within him. Lyria's luminous eyes softened further, a subtle smile playing at the corners of her lips. Without another word, she turned and led him into the dimly lit chamber, her movements fluid and graceful. The interior was both luxurious and stark, blending elements of human design with unmistakable touches of alien artistry. Bioluminescent panels cast a soft glow across the room, highlighting the intricate carvings on the walls and the plush furnishings arranged with meticulous precision. At the center stood a large, low-platform bed draped in shimmering fabrics that seemed to ripple like water under the shifting light. She approached the bed and gestured for him to follow, her manner inviting but devoid of any hint of impropriety. Hesitantly, he complied, taking measured steps toward the unfamiliar arrangement. As they reached the edge of the bed, Lyria paused and turned to face him, her gaze searching his own as though trying to read the thoughts racing through his mind. "Remove your boots," she instructed gently, her voice carrying the weight of command softened by an underlying tenderness. He obeyed, slipping off his worn combat boots and placing them neatly beside the bed. The coolness of the floor beneath his socks sent a shiver up his spine, grounding him momentarily in the reality of the situation. Lyria watched him intently, her expression unreadable yet undeniably focused. Then, with a fluid motion, she extended her hand toward him, palm upward, fingers slightly curved, an invitation rather than a demand. Taking a deep breath, he placed his hand in hers, feeling the warmth of her touch for the first time. Her skin was smooth and cool, like polished stone kissed by sunlight, yet it radiated a strange vitality that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. She guided him to sit beside her on the edge of the bed, their proximity heightening the surreal nature of the moment. For a brief instant, he wondered if this was all some elaborate test, a psychological evaluation designed to gauge human reactions to alien customs. But the sincerity in her eyes dispelled that notion almost immediately. "Relax," she whispered, her voice barely audible yet resonating deeply within him. "This is not about dominance or submission. It is about understanding." With that, she released his hand and reclined gracefully onto the bed, arranging herself in a position of repose that was both regal and relaxed. Her robes pooled around her like liquid starlight, accentuating her ethereal beauty. Feeling awkward and out of place, he hesitated before following her lead, lying down stiffly beside her. The mattress conformed to his body in ways he hadn't anticipated, cradling him in surprising comfort. Despite the luxury, he remained tense, acutely aware of every breath, every movement. Lyria, however, seemed completely at ease, her breathing slow and rhythmic, her presence exuding a calming influence that gradually began to seep into his consciousness. Moments passed in silence, the only sounds the faint hum of the bioluminescent panels and the distant murmur of nocturnal insects outside. Slowly, inexorably, he felt his muscles begin to loosen, his rigid posture giving way to a more natural state of relaxation. Lyria's nearness was oddly comforting, her presence a soothing balm against the backdrop of uncertainty that had defined his life thus far. Then, without warning, she spoke again, her voice a mere thread of sound in the stillness. "Tell me about yourself, human." Her request caught him off guard, jolting him back to awareness. He turned his head slightly to look at her, meeting her gaze in the dim light. Her eyes gleamed with genuine interest, prompting him to search for words amidst the chaos of his thoughts. "There isn't much to tell," he began hesitantly, his voice rough with disuse. "I'm just a soldier, doing my duty." She smiled faintly, her expression encouraging him to continue. "Everyone has stories worth telling," she countered softly. "Even soldiers." Encouraged by her gentle persistence, he found himself recounting fragments of his past, the harshness of military training, the camaraderie of fellow soldiers, the loneliness that crept in during quiet moments when duty demanded solitude. As he spoke, he realized how rarely he allowed himself to reflect on these memories, let alone share them with another soul. Yet here he was, spilling pieces of himself to an alien princess under the cover of night. Lyria listened intently, her gaze never wavering, her occasional nods and murmurs of acknowledgement urging him onward. When he faltered, struggling to articulate the complexities of his emotions, she filled the gaps with thoughtful questions that probed deeper than surface-level inquiries. "Do you ever wonder what lies beyond your duties?" she asked at one point, her tone contemplative. "Beyond the boundaries of your world?" The question struck a chord within him, stirring dormant aspirations and long-buried dreams. He hesitated before answering, weighing his words carefully. "Sometimes," he admitted quietly. "But wondering doesn't change anything. We all have roles to play." Her response was immediate, infused with a quiet conviction that resonated deeply. "Perhaps. But roles can evolve. Boundaries can shift." There was a pause, then she added softly, "Just as stars move across the sky, so too can paths change direction." Her words hung in the air between them, pregnant with meaning. He lay there, staring up at the ceiling, absorbing the weight of her insight. In that moment, surrounded by the unfamiliar yet strangely comforting presence of the alien princess, he felt a flicker of something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the trajectory of his life wasn't set in stone. That perhaps, despite the vast differences between them, they shared a common yearning for something greater than the sum of their parts. As the hours ticked by, the initial tension that had gripped the room dissolved into a profound sense of mutual understanding. The guard, who had started the night apprehensive and guarded, found himself opening up in ways he never thought possible. Each story he shared seemed to draw forth a new layer of empathy from Lyria, whose own tales of navigating the labyrinthine politics of the Androlith Empire painted a picture of a being burdened by immense responsibility yet driven by an insatiable curiosity about the universe. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, weaving together strands of personal history, philosophical musings, and quiet reflections on the nature of existence. Lyria spoke of the Androlith homeworld, a planet where the skies shimmered with auroras year-round, and cities floated atop crystalline seas. She described festivals where music resonated through the air itself, vibrations creating harmonious patterns visible to the naked eye. These descriptions transported him to places he could scarcely imagine, filling him with a sense of wonder that bordered on reverence. In turn, he recounted simpler pleasures: the scent of rain-soaked earth, the camaraderie of shared meals after long missions, the solace found in watching sunsets over desolate landscapes. To his surprise, Lyria listened with rapt attention, her eyes reflecting a deep appreciation for the nuances of human experience. "Your species possesses a unique resilience," she mused aloud at one point. "A capacity to find beauty even in adversity." Her observation struck a chord within him, making him see his own life through fresh eyes. It dawned on him that perhaps resilience wasn't merely survival. It was finding meaning in the struggle, cherishing fleeting moments of joy amidst chaos. This realization sparked a newfound admiration for his own kind, a perspective he hadn't considered before. Yet, alongside this growing bond, a shadow loomed. The guard couldn't shake the feeling that Lyria's request to share his company stemmed from more than mere curiosity. There were moments when her gaze grew distant, her expression tinged with melancholy. He sensed an undercurrent of sadness beneath her composed exterior, though she never explicitly voiced it. When he probed gently, asking if something troubled her, she deflected with vague responses about the weight of leadership and the isolation inherent in her station. Still, her evasiveness only deepened his concern. He began to piece together fragments of her narrative: a childhood spent preparing for rulership, friendships forged and lost due to political maneuvering, a love affair cut short by duty. The image that emerged was one of a being trapped within golden chains of expectation, yearning for freedom yet bound by obligation. Her admission that she sought connection, however fleeting, took on new significance. Perhaps this night wasn't just about understanding humanity, it was about reclaiming a part of herself that had been sacrificed along the way. The emotional currents running between them grew stronger with each passing moment. The guard found himself grappling with conflicting impulses, the desire to offer comfort and the knowledge that he was woefully inadequate to address the scope of her pain. Yet, there was something undeniable about the intimacy they shared, a connection transcending language and species. They weren't just two individuals sharing a bed, they were explorers charting uncharted territory, discovering truths about themselves and each other in the process. At one point, Lyria reached out, her hand brushing against his forearm. The touch was feather-light, yet it carried an electric charge that sent shivers coursing through him. He froze, unsure how to interpret the gesture. Was it a sign of trust? An expression of gratitude? Or something else entirely? Before he could dwell on it, she withdrew her hand, leaving behind a lingering warmth that seemed to seep into his very bones. "You remind me of someone," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. Her voice was softer now, tinged with nostalgia. "Someone I once knew." He turned to look at her, startled by the raw emotion in her tone. "Who?" he asked, though part of him feared the answer. She hesitated, her gaze drifting away as though searching for words. "A friend," she said finally. "Someone who saw me not as a princess, but as simply Lyria." The simplicity of her statement struck him profoundly. Here was a being revered across galaxies, yet she longed for the same thing everyone else did, to be seen, truly seen, beyond titles and expectations. He wanted to tell her that he understood, that he saw her too, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he settled for a nod, hoping his silence conveyed what he couldn't articulate. The night wore on, their conversation punctuated by stretches of companionable silence. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, indifferent witnesses to the quiet drama unfolding beneath their gaze. Inside, the bond between human and alien continued to deepen, tethered by threads of vulnerability, curiosity, and an unspoken promise to cherish this singular moment in time. As the first hints of dawn began to creep over the horizon, casting a pale glow through the translucent curtains, the guard felt an overwhelming sense of clarity wash over him. This encounter, improbable and fleeting as it was, had transformed something fundamental within him. He realized that while he might never fully understand Lyria's motivations or the depths of her sorrow, he could offer her one thing: presence. Simply being there, listening, acknowledging her humanity, or whatever equivalent existed within her alien essence, was enough. Yet, even as this epiphany settled within him, he couldn't ignore the nagging question gnawing at the edges of his mind. Why had she chosen him? Of all the people in this sprawling human settlement, why had she singled him out for this extraordinary act of vulnerability? Was it random chance, or did she see something in him that others missed? The thought unsettled him, not because he doubted his worth, but because it hinted at possibilities too vast to comprehend. Beside him, Lyria stirred slightly, her breathing growing slower and steadier as exhaustion claimed her. Watching her drift toward sleep, he marveled at the paradox she embodied: powerful yet fragile, enigmatic yet disarmingly sincere. In that moment, he made a silent vow to protect her, not just as a soldier fulfilling his duty, but as someone who had glimpsed a fragment of her soul and recognized its value. Outside, the world awakened, oblivious to the quiet miracle transpiring within the confines of the royal suite. Above, the stars faded, surrendering their vigil to the encroaching light of day. And inside, two beings from vastly different worlds lay side by side, united by an unspoken understanding that transcended the barriers of species, culture, and destiny. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting golden streaks across the room, the guard felt a shift in the atmosphere. Lyria stirred again, her eyes fluttering open to meet his gaze. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, suspended in the fragile aftermath of their shared night. Then, without warning, her expression changed, her serene demeanor giving way to something sharper, more calculating. "You've been wondering why I chose you," she said abruptly, her voice no longer melodic but edged with a steely resolve. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, delivered with an unsettling certainty that sent a ripple of unease through him. He blinked, caught off guard by the sudden intensity in her tone. Yes," he admitted cautiously, unsure where this line of inquiry might lead. She sat up slowly, her shimmering robes cascading around her like liquid light. The intimacy of the previous night seemed to evaporate as she regarded him with an almost clinical detachment. "There is a reason," she continued, her words measured and deliberate. "But before I reveal it, you must understand, nothing about my presence here is accidental." His pulse quickened. He had suspected there was more to her visit than diplomacy, but hearing her confirm it aloud sent a jolt of apprehension coursing through him. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low and steady despite the turmoil brewing within. Lyria hesitated, her luminous eyes flickering with what could only be described as regret, or perhaps fear. "My empire is not as unified as it appears," she confessed after a long pause. "There are factions within the Androlith Council who oppose my vision for our future. They seek to undermine me, to dismantle the alliances I have worked so hard to forge, including those with your kind." The revelation hit him like a physical blow. Diplomatic tensions were one thing, but internal betrayal? The implications were staggering. "And you think they sent someone here?" he ventured, glancing instinctively toward the door as though expecting assassins to burst through at any moment. "Not necessarily," she replied cryptically. "But they may know of my plans. Of you." The emphasis on the last word sent another chill down his spine. "Me?" he echoed, incredulous. "Why would anyone care about me?" Her gaze softened briefly, a flicker of the vulnerability from the night before returning. "Because you are different," she said simply. "You see beyond titles and ranks. You listen when others speak. You feel deeply." She paused, searching his face as if gauging his reaction. "These qualities make you dangerous, to them, and perhaps even to me." Before he could respond, a sharp knock sounded at the door, startling them both. Lyria's composure snapped back into place instantly, her regal bearing masking whatever emotions had surfaced moments ago. "Enter," she called out, her voice commanding once more. The door creaked open to reveal a human aide, visibly flustered. "Your Highness," the man stammered, bowing deeply. "Forgive the intrusion, but we've received urgent communications from your fleet. They're requesting immediate contact." Lyria rose gracefully from the bed, her movements fluid and purposeful. "I will attend to it shortly," she said dismissively, waving the aide away. Once the door clicked shut behind him, she turned back to the guard, her expression grave. "This changes nothing," she told him firmly. "Stay close. Trust no one, not even those who claim loyalty to either of us." Her words hung heavily in the air, their weight pressing down on him as he processed the enormity of what she had revealed. Was he now embroiled in some interstellar power struggle, thrust into the role of protector, or pawn? The thought was dizzying, yet undeniable. Over the next few hours, the day unfolded in a blur of tension and uncertainty. Lyria remained cloistered in her quarters, conducting secretive communications with her advisors via holographic projections that flickered with encrypted messages. The guard stood watch outside her door, acutely aware of the scrutiny he was under. Every passing colonist, every distant glance from fellow soldiers, felt like a potential threat. Paranoia began to creep in, whispering insidious doubts about who could be trusted. By mid-afternoon, the strain became unbearable. Seeking solace, he stepped onto the balcony adjoining Lyria's suite, breathing in the crisp air as he tried to clear his mind. Below, the colony bustled with activity, oblivious to the storm brewing above their heads. As he leaned against the railing, lost in thought, a soft voice broke the silence. "You look troubled," Lyria observed, joining him silently. Her presence startled him, though he masked it quickly. "I'm fine," he lied reflexively, though the tightness in his jaw betrayed him. She studied him for a moment, then sighed softly. "You needn't shoulder this burden alone," she said gently. "Whatever happens next, remember that I chose you for a reason. Not because you are expendable, but because you are capable." Her reassurance should have comforted him, but instead, it raised more questions. Capable of what, exactly? Protecting her? Unraveling conspiracies? Or something far greater, and far riskier? As if reading his thoughts, she reached out, her hand brushing his arm again. This time, the touch lingered, sending a cascade of conflicting emotions through him. "Tonight," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the wind, "we leave this place. Together." The declaration struck him like lightning, leaving him momentarily speechless. "Leave?" he repeated dumbly. "Where are we going?" "To a place where truths can be uncovered," she replied enigmatically. "A place where neither of us must hide who we truly are." Her words ignited a firestorm of possibilities in his mind. Escape, adventure, betrayal? He didn't know which terrified him more, the prospect of leaving everything familiar behind or the idea that staying might put Lyria, and countless others, in mortal danger. Before he could press her for details, a distant alarm blared, shattering the tranquility of the moment. Red lights began flashing across the colony, accompanied by shouts and the rapid clatter of boots on pavement. Lyria stiffened beside him, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the horizon. "They've found us," she whispered grimly. "We must move. Now." Without waiting for his response, she grabbed his hand and pulled him back inside, her earlier poise replaced by urgency. As they moved swiftly through the suite, gathering only the essentials, the guard couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were about to change irrevocably. Whatever lay ahead, he realized, would test them both in ways neither could anticipate. Yet even amidst the chaos, one truth remained crystal clear. Whether by choice or circumstance, their fates were intertwined, and unraveling the mystery of Lyria's intentions would require confronting dangers neither of them could yet imagine. The colony erupted into chaos as armored figures stormed the building, their weapons trained on Lyria's suite. "Stay behind me," the guard hissed, gripping a rifle he'd hastily retrieved. Lyria nodded, but her eyes burned with determination, no longer the vulnerable princess from the night before. "They're here for me," she said sharply. "If they capture us, everything I've worked for will be undone." "Then we fight," he replied, surprising even himself with the conviction in his voice. Gunfire echoed through the halls as they moved swiftly toward an escape route Lyria revealed, a hidden passage leading to a subterranean hangar. Each step was fraught with peril, enemies closing in from all sides. The guard took calculated risks, drawing fire while Lyria used her advanced tech to disable pursuers with bursts of energy that crackled like lightning. As they reached the hangar, a massive alien vessel descended, its sleek surface glinting ominously under strobing red lights. "This is my ship," Lyria explained breathlessly. "But it won't wait long." Just as they sprinted toward it, a figure emerged from the shadows, Commander Valen, one of Lyria's own advisors. His expression was cold, devoid of loyalty. "You cannot run forever, Your Highness," he sneered. "The Council demands your return." Lyria stepped forward, defiance blazing in her gaze. "Tell them this. I choose freedom over chains. Humanity over tyranny." With a swift motion, she activated a device on her wrist, sending a pulse wave that knocked Valen and his men unconscious. They boarded the ship moments later, its engines roaring to life. As they ascended, leaving the colony, and Earth, behind, the guard looked at Lyria, questions swirling in his mind. "Where are we going?" "To find allies," she answered firmly, "and to expose the truth about those who seek control." For the first time, he saw not just a princess, but a leader willing to sacrifice everything for a better future. As stars stretched into streaks outside the viewport, he realized their journey had only begun. Whatever awaited them among the galaxies, they would face it together, not bound by duty or obligation, but by trust forged in the crucible of survival. In the vast silence of space, Lyria turned to him, her hand brushing his once more. "Thank you," she whispered. For the first time, her voice carried no secrets, only gratitude and hope. As the ship pierced the atmosphere, Lyria faced the guard, her luminous eyes locking onto his. "You've given me more than protection," she said softly. "You've reminded me why I fight." He nodded, words failing him as emotions surged. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, a canvas of infinite possibility. "Whatever happens next," she added, "know that you are no longer just human to me. You are family." The ship soared into the void, leaving Earth behind. Together, they embraced the unknown, two souls bound by trust and purpose. And as the universe unfolded before them, one truth became clear: their story was only beginning.